Uh, this is Scott Stewart, and yeah, think I'm kind of lucky being a band director, music teacher. I have the biggest collaboration, biggest group project going on every day. So
Hmm.
when I was reading the articles, I was comparing business to band, basically, and what goes on from the section to between sections to the overall group, and
Hmm.
so I think I have it kind of easy in that way. But
Well, you have to structure it so that it works, though, as well. And I played trumpet for a lot of years, so we always think that we are the most important one in the band. So getting them to back off and allowing others to have their piece come through
right,
is something that I'm sure you have to work on.
yeah.
So how do you make yeah, so how do you make that happen in your classroom, and then maybe somebody else will join in and talk about how they handle people that want to take over groups in their environment?
Mine is listening. I mean, more than anything. And I found out the best way, for example, like you said, the trumpets are always in the back. They don't hear what's happening in the front. So move them to the front. Sometimes they'll get a better idea what's going on around them. Sometimes we change the band into one big circle, and they can sit next to any instrument they want. They don't have to stay in their section. So try to let them know what's going on that they may not hear. We talk about that. We try to tell them, listen across the group. Of
Hmm.
course, listening is, if they listen to that concept in the first place,
Hmm.
Uh, but those are some ways that we try to foster that collaboration and listening between, why are you, these are flutes, for God's sakes, you're a trumpet player. Of course you're going to be louder than they are. So
Hmm. Hey, does anyone else have an experience on collaboration in the classroom, particularly with how to manage people that want to be a trumpet in their group? I'll use that from now on now.
I can go.
Go.
So I'm not in a typical classroom, but I work in a maker space, and we have field trips that come in quite often. And we often will find that there is a kid who's typically good at everything, who's the natural organic leader in a group. So when you get partners or any group work, they're ready to jump in and just boss everyone around and tell everyone what to do. That's particularly challenging in middle school. So we had a group come in from Bay City maybe 2 weeks ago now. And so when they were doing their planning, they were allowed to work in their groups, but then as they had to share their idea before they could get their materials to start their design, I got to pick who was going to explain the plan to me. And as a teacher, you kind of have a good idea of which person has been the trumpet of the group. And so they knew that everyone in their group, even if that person it didn't mean you had to talk as much or be a natural leader, but everyone had to at least have an understanding of the plan, which helped equal the playing field a little bit.
Very good. Very good. Anyone?
Are you muted, Jen? I think you're muted. I can't hear you.
Thank you. I do that to try and cut down on the feedback from the thing right here, and I always forget to turn it back on. Thank you. A couple people have commented on the side in chat. So in case anybody's on a phone or on an iPad, it does not let you see chat as easily sometimes. So I'm just going to kind of go down through the comments and bring those up. And if anyone feels like they would like to speak out loud, that's fine too. So Stephanie said about collaborating in a Google Classroom and students answering a question you post and other students can't comment on that. So Stephanie, would you like to talk about how you feel that that's collaborating versus how you differentiate that as collaboration versus kind of answering the questions themselves but looking at other people's feedback? Or maybe you don't have a mic. I'm sorry. I didn't even think to ask who had mics before this. All right, so in my opinion, whenever students are answering one at a time, a lot of times they're giving their opinion and they are creating kind of a group cognition answer where they're pulling pieces together from everyone else's work and they're making one answer at the end, but they're not necessarily collaborating as they're working through it. And that's why I asked you if you wanted to speak, because I don't care. We have dogs and kids all the time. So with the Google Docs and Google Slide, yeah, the Google Apps for Education and Google Apps as a whole are fantastic ways to have students collaborate. As they're writing together, creating slides together, these kinds of things, that's really fantastic ways for them to look at each other's reasonings and how to kind of create a group idea of what they want to say as it's going out as a document there. And with the collaboration with the project for the week, it does not have to be done with your students. You can make something to show them how to do it, or you could also create a template that says this is what a student product would look like. Because if you make a good one, then a lot of times they'll try to one up for you, especially if you didn't tell them that you made it. You know, this is a good one that I had last year, and then all of a sudden they want to try and do it a little bit better. It can be face-to-face or online. I don't care. A pencil can be a technology if you're looking at it for how it facilitates the learning. So I'm fine with that piece as well. Somebody else said PLC department and common planning at the high school level, they collaborate. So would someone want, Nathan, would you like to expand on that a little bit? I'm not sure what PLC department is, although common planning I've heard of. Okay, or anyone else? Oh, Karen said 5th grades are, okay, so is PLC the common planning then, Nathan? Okay, I didn't realize that was terminology for it. Okay, middle schools, in Pennsylvania, middle school is typically the only one that gets a common planning. The other one is like hard to get. Matthew Novak, go ahead.
I'm gonna try, can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you great.
Okay. We do restorative justice circles within our school. So whenever there's like an issue, like for instance, the kids are too loud or they're off task, I'll bring that to the group and I'll say, what do you think the problem is going on right now? What's causing the issue? And we'll have a talking stick and we'll pass it around the room. And it's kind of, you have to foster that collaboration. But with the talking stick, the only person that's allowed to talk is the person with the talking stick. And we've kind of focused that every idea matters, every person matters. And it's the first stage you go through and you talk about what the problem is and people will voice their opinion, what they think the problem is. Second stage, how does that affect us? And it's how does it affect you individually? And say it's we're off task. Some students will go, well, I can't study or I can't get the work done that we need to get done, so I end up having homework. And then the third stage is what can we do to correct this issue, to solve this? What are some solutions? And then all together we come together as a whole and make a decision as far as what is best for the group, what is the best solution. So that's kind of an example of collaboration within my school district.
Okay, that's very interesting. I've heard of using that before, but not, what was the first term you used for it?
Restorative justice circles.
Okay. That's a new term for me as well. I've got all kinds of things I'm writing down tonight already. All right, anyone else that wants to share how you're using collaboration in your classroom or in your workspace, or way that you're, way that you structure projects or anything like that in order to foster this collaboration and the mind thought of putting them together. Now, Karen said, and I missed it because I saw Google Docs and Google Slide, they're creating an assembly line to create model cars from clay. That's interesting. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we are going to the DIA, which is the museum down in Detroit, and Diego Rivera created the Detroit Industry mural. And so they are going there to be a part of that museum, of that mural, and they are learning what Henry Ford created. And then they have to come back to the classroom and actually decide who's going to do what part of the car. And they have to create 5 cars, because it's 5 in there. groups. So it's going to be an assembly line. So they're doing all that on Google Doc to figure out who's going to be in charge of creating all the certain parts, like the tires and then the other pieces. And then when does the assembly line start? And they have to be done by the due date. That car has to be ready. And then they have to create a commercial to sell their car after that.
That's really cool. Can I tell you, I want to tell you, first of all the good things that I think that you're doing with that, and then I'll let other people talk. Okay?
Okay.
So I really love how you have that pieced out that they are collaborating, then doing their individual pieces that are interwoven, and then they're coming back and collaborating at the end to create that piece. That's really a great way to give them not only group ownership of it, but also individual ownership of it.
Okay.
And the way that they're putting those pieces together. So that's very cool. I would, if you post that online, I don't know if you have Google School and it has to stay inside or not, but if you post that at the end whenever they do their commercials and that, I would love to hear about it. And if you post it in a blog as like, you know, here parents, here's what your kids have done. Here's the QR code to get to that. Notice how we're tying all the technology together. If you do that, I would love to send it out as a class email to everyone so they can see that, because I think that would be really interesting. And the way that you're pulling all the pieces together, a lot of different pieces together from things we've worked on, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
I'm excited about it. I'm excited.
Good. Anyone else want to talk and share? Ways that you're using collaboration, ways that you're thinking about using collaboration. Robin?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So we don't collaborate very well at my work.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 23,000 people, and we spent millions of dollars on Office 365 and can't implement it because it doesn't have any security. So in my environment, we have to find a way to secure OneDrive. It acts like Google Drive so that we can collaborate with it. Because if you think about it, everything we do is confidential information because it's proprietary.
Mm-hmm.
So if OneDrive isn't secure, then we can't share documents and invoices and the secret sauce of the company.
Mm-hmm.
So we haven't cracked that nut yet. Otherwise, we use SharePoint, which is a little antiquated because we use a previous version. We can post documents out there for people to share, but you have to actually check them in and out. So you can't edit the document simultaneously like you can with Google Docs. So it's a little frustrating because you can get off versions on documents and just very hard to collaborate with people. So
now, do you collaborate face to face?
Everyone in this class.
Do you collaborate face to face?
We do. We have the home office, the auto finance office in Atlanta, and then another marketing office in downtown Richmond, and then 166 stores. So the three primary corporate offices, we just talk to each other, and that's it. And that's all we do. So we don't really share.
So that's one thing within the constraints of your environment, though, that you really have very little you can do.
Yep.
I do know that, like Penn State, which is where I graduated from, they are not allowed to use any Google products or Dropbox or anything.
We aren't either. So I got an email today from someone at a store. They're using Google Docs to share auction and sales information with each other. Oh no, I mean, you just can't do that in my environment. Right. And we have a policy against using any cloud apps like Google Drive or Dropbox.
Yeah.
So I had to tell them that.
The solution that they went with is called Box.
Mm-hmm.
And it is off of a server that Penn State owns and takes care of. And you have to log in with a secure login and double authentication. But that's the way that they're getting around the security bits that they have, even with their government research that they have. So that's one thing that maybe might help you, but it's still not. It's still very much a SharePoint upload, download, not as nice as the other products. Does anyone else have issues with collaboration online? Yeah. The school that I worked in did not allow it for a long time, even though we were one-to-one computer school. Whoops, hold on. I just clicked something bad. Okay. So even though we were one-to-one computer laptop school for about 4 or 5 years, they did not allow us to use Google Docs that had to have a sign-in. So everything that we did had to be the teacher posting it with an open link that students could collaborate on it without signing in, and then that creates all kinds of ownership issues. So there's the next piece. Have any of you had issues with ownership issues, or, you know, editing someone's documents that were not, you know, appropriate edits and things like that? Have you had issues with that? How have you dealt with that in the classroom? Because when you're collaborating, you have the potential for a lot of really great things, and you have the potential for a lot of issues.
When I was teaching elementary school, it was a 4-5 building, and we were pretty split staff-wise, where half of the staff did not want students logging on the Chromebooks because of the time it spent doing the login, and then they wanted personalized pictures, and it seemed like a time waster. And the other half was pretty adamant on doing so. We had lots of, I would say, elementary versions of security issues, meaning that kids were changing each other's documents and moving things around, because if they didn't log in, everything had to be very open. So teachers had very little control over their own Google Classrooms. So I think that was an issue that we had. And to me, it was more of teachers not being comfortable taking that time up front to get their students acclimated to the Chromebook and getting the logins figured out. We had issues where students were changing and deleting other people's documents, uploading inappropriate pictures, just because that side of the teacher-student relationship, they couldn't figure it out.
Yeah. Does anyone else have anything else to share? Because from my experience working in K-12, if the kids know that you're not real comfortable with it, they are more than welcome or more than willing to dive in and make you more uncomfortable. Although they will help you out as well. There are some that love being the helper. And Stephanie said, in case you can't see the chat on the side, sometimes in Google presentation, it's usually not on purpose though. There's a revision history, but it's not always perfect. You have to train them to be careful. And that's very true. That's very true. That's one of the best things about it, is especially if they are logging in, is that you can track what the changes that happen. Although sometimes it captures them in big chunks and it misses the little fine details that revision history does not always bring back. Speaking from experience. Okay, so does anyone else have questions about the assignment this week, questions about what you're working on, or anything else that you wanted to talk about with collaboration, ways to make it work in your classroom, how do you assess it or measure it? You guys are like crickets cheeping. All right, then. I will stick around. I have about 7 minutes left on my 40 minutes here. And you guys, oh, and Samantha wants to clarify. I know there's a couple people that are logged in by phone, and when you have it by phone, you can't capture the chats. So I'll let her type that. And yeah, working on one computer in a group, you can't track who did what work. That's very difficult. And one student, whoever happens to be on, then it tends to be their project and everyone else helps them. And that sometimes creates a lot of issues with student ownership of it, as well as with workload, distributing the workload. This project does not need to be a student outcome. It could be something that you create with everything, make it work for you and your environment. It could be something you do to give people resources, show them a flow chart, chain of command, how processes need to work, links that go to a resources for a project and you have them arranged with a concept map, or yes, sell a program to executives, great idea. Or it could be a sample of a student project. You know, I'm gonna have the kids work together and this is what they're gonna create and that's what it looks like. So it could be something you give them as a teacher, it could be a student product, either way. Long as you can make a justification for it, I am fine with that. And like I said, if you want to use a whiteboard program, you want to use a mapping program, you want to use Google, I am more than willing to look at anything as long as I don't have to pay for it. Yeah. All right, then. I'll stick around for another 5 minutes. If anybody has any questions, you do not have to log out. If you've not been on Zoom before, The reason I like this over WebEx or anything like that is it is free for one-to-one conversations. You can have as long as you want. And if you have like this with a lot of people, you have 40 minutes free, and you can use it to screencast, you can record, you can do all kinds of really cool things with it, share screens and all that. The mind map itself does not have to have collaboration, but you should have collaboration within the lesson in some way, shape, or form. So maybe the mind map is giving them the overview of a group project where each of the nodes or the branches off of the center is one role that the students are going to be playing in it. So maybe one's an editor, one's going to be the photographer, one's the reporter, one's going to be the typesetter, you know, or something like that. So you could use it to map out collaboration in a classroom, or you could use it as something they create or something you use for them. So the lesson has to have collaboration in it somewhere, but it doesn't have to be they're collaborating online. Does that make sense? Okay. And if it doesn't, stick around and I can send you another Zoom link or I can call you. And anybody that has questions, email me. I get back to you pretty quickly usually. And if I don't, something's wrong and email me again. And it was great to see some of you and to see some of you's black faces with the spaces that you are taking up on here with your big names on it. And it was a pleasure to meet those of you that I have not met before. So have a great night.